Good morning and welcome to the challenge. As we begin all of our shows, first we'd like to thank God for another opportunity, and we want to thank you, the viewers, for taking the time to listen in. We're excited about this morning's show because our guest is a dear friend, a mentor, someone who, for me, has been a true inspiration. Somebody who I believe has a solution to the problems that we face. And I use it in the singular, but I'm sure that's not the way he would express it. It's all of ours. It is our solutions to the problems that we face. That person is Dr. Norm Kurland. Dr. Kurland is an economist. He's a lawyer. He has worked many years in the vineyard. He has labored long and hard and has for us a solution to the economic woes that the very least of us face on a day-to-day basis. I'm so excited to have my friend to be our guest on today's show. Dr. Kurland, good morning, and thank you for consenting to be my guest.
Well, thank you, Russell. It's always a pleasure being on a show with you.
Well, I can't tell you what it means to me to have you to chime in this morning. We woke up this morning to snow and ice in the Northeast, but I don't think anything warms the cockles of my heart like having you be my guest.
Well, thanks, Russell. Maybe our conversation will be warm enough to melt some of that snow. Okay.
I certainly hope so.
Right.
Well, the Just Third Way resonates in my heart for a lot of reasons. I think for me personally, what sticks out in my mind is when I think about my Christian faith, Jesus Christ said he was the way, the truth, and the light. And folks who heard him say that thought that he must have been, I'm sure they thought he was completely out of his mind and thought that he must be somebody who was very arrogant and somebody who really did not have in mind everybody else's welfare but just his own. But when I heard about this Just Third Way, I tell you, Dr. Kurland, I have not, and I don't think I ever will for as long as I live, shake that. The Just Third Way. Tell us why the Just Third Way is a solution for the economic woes that all of us are facing here in this country and throughout the world.
Right. Russell, what it comes down to, human beings are really seeking satisfaction or happiness or harmony in their lives. And as we bring together more and more people on an idea, as you put it, as an idea whose time has come, what we're doing is challenging the old order. Whether you're calling it capitalism, which it kind of institutionalizes greed and makes people think that greed is good. Well, it isn't good. Or on the other side, the other alternative that has been posed, or is often called socialism or communism, where it's based on envy. Somebody has something and you want to take it away from them, or you want to destroy it. Neither of these things, neither of these two systems, which are being taught in the universities, either one or both or a mixture of the two, are being taught, but they don't teach you in the finest of the law schools, in any of the academia. They don't teach you justice. And that's what it's all about. That's what we're talking about. And justice is something that you cannot have unless you're respecting all people, the dignity of people. And to the extent a system isn't built on principles of justice, you're going to find many people are going to be victimized by the system, and they're not going to be able to do anything about it, or they don't think they can do anything about it. They can, but first they have to know, what is it that we're talking about? We have a Center for Economic and Social Justice. Well, people are looking for peace, but you can't have peace. You have to work for justice. But you can't have social justice unless you have economic justice. And if you don't have economic justice or social justice, you're not going to have peace. You're going to have people who are victimized by a system. And the system wasn't created by God.
That's right. That's right.
It was created by people.
That's right. And that makes it imperfect.
It makes it automatically imperfect. It'll never be perfect. But the thing that you do is pursue truth. You pursue what's right.
Yes.
You pursue what's just.
Yes.
And you can't change a system by yourself.
That's right.
So until enough people become aware of what is it that will relieve them of the pain and suffering and anger that they go through every day. I look at the cultural environment that was there affecting the kid in Newtown. I mean, that's part of his problem. Okay, he had a mental problem, and you had the guns, but the cultural system, he had to feel excluded for whatever the reason. I mean, to kill first graders, it's just insane.
Yes, it's unimaginable. I'm wearing my ribbon today to commemorate what happened to those kids in Newtown. We should never forget that. That is, to me, a very telling, sign that things must change.
Yeah, and a lot of people think. I happen to believe that you cannot teach what's right and wrong except through organized religion, or not just one faith, but all faith.
Mm-hmm,
but then even religion can be perverted by people who want to push their religion on others using force. For example, you look at what's going on in the world. You got suicide bombers.
Yes.
Who kill
yes.
innocent people, children and women, because their view of a particular religion is to impose it on the world. Use force.
Yes,
So
it certainly can be distorted, and that's a lot of what goes on, especially at the local level. People are clinging to the bit of hope and the bit of faith that they have based upon those who they trust to be faith leaders, if you will. And you are right, it is often distorted. I think that's why it's so important for us to recognize that and to address it in a way that is just.
That's right. See, that's why I focus on justice, knowing that the law schools, lawyers are not taught justice. They're taught the law, but the law may not be just laws. And you saw that in slavery, you saw that in segregation, you see it in the present welfare system. It is not just. Now, what would be a just system? What would be a just economy?
Mm-hmm.
It's one that empowers every person.
Yes.
It would every person would go through an education and developing its own sense, his or her sense of self-worth, its own sense that I can develop to the maximum of my capacity. That's the kind of an educational system we should have. Well, where does this power come from? Well, the interesting thing is power cannot be disconnected from ownership. If somebody owns, or a few people own, own everything, then everybody has to bend to that person who owns. And so in the present system, you have a tiny fraction of humanity.
Yes.
1% own more of the energy slaves, the machines, the rentable space, the land. 1% own more than the bottom 90% combined. And the way we finance our growth, you don't add new owners. No. Basically, most of the growth that takes place, and this is what's changing in the world, are technologies, the energy slaves.
Sure, sure.
And if you own the energy slaves, and you can use the energy slaves to do what human beings used to do, you can be liberated. You can be empowered.
Yes.
You can be a person by yourself. But the system is not making it possible for every human being in the community, in any community, and the world, in any nation, and the world as a whole. It's concentrated. You either have people controlling government who use their power in government to be able to effectively control things, or in the private sector, where those who have the money or control the money system, and the money system can be changed. The money system today is what largely determines, as you grow your technologies, as you develop new technology, it determines who's going to own it. Because if you have access to money, you can become an owner. And so the Just Third Way has a program that we call capital homesteading. It goes back to some of the ideas in America, other than, of course, what is slavery? Slavery is when somebody owns your body. And they control the fruits of your body. They can control your mind. They can control your life.
Which is totally unjust.
That's right. And therefore they say, okay, we had a Emancipation Proclamation, 13th Amendment, and that was supposed to end slavery, but it isn't. It's another kind of slavery that exists today.
Yes.
Called wage slavery. You're a wage slave.
That's right. All of us are 6 months away from being in a welfare line, or being in a food stamp line or something.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know that Bill Gates doesn't have to go to a food stamp line.
That's right. That's right.
He can earn the next $1 billion if he were in a coma, because the system's working for him.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so then the question is, if the system's working for the few, and power follows property, and it always will, you got to have property not only in yourself. That's not enough, because if with the technology that is coming about, many of the things that human beings used to do can now be done faster, quicker, and more effectively through technology, through energy slaves, through information systems, etc. That's the future. It's what human beings can create from nature that is largely replacing human beings at the workplace. There's nothing wrong with that if you own those machines. If your work is going to be taken over by a machine, why not own the machine?
Absolutely.
And so when I first heard of this idea, these are not my ideas. I was looking for an answer back in the old civil rights days. I was very much involved as a lawyer investigating problems in Mississippi, and was very close in the early '60s.
Yes, your history is well documented. I saw that you spent time with Medgar Evers, and
Medgar was a friend. He was we just months before he was shot in the back. He was here in Washington, and we were strategizing together, but he had me, when Meredith entered the University of Mississippi, he had me go there. Medgar brought him in and asked me to be an observer in the thing, so I was down there. But anyway, and then you had these young people in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. They were fantastic. It took guts. It took people who
Sure.
are thinking positively, not negatively. They never went around preaching hate. They were preaching justice, empowerment
That's
for
right.
everybody.
That's right.
So this is what we have to get. We have to get that mentality back again. But first you have to know what is it you want to demand. And so we developed it's ideas of other people, a Capital Homestead Act. Why Capital Homestead Act? Well, right after the Civil War, as a matter of fact, during the Civil War, Lincoln signed 150 years ago the Homestead Act, making land available west of the Mississippi. This is part of his strategy for winning the war. So that people could get land, people who are propertyless could go out to the west of the Mississippi and get 160 acres. In many of your land grant schools.
Well, that's interesting. You know, they just a movie just came out about Lincoln.
Fantastic movie.
Yes.
Fantastic movie.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to see it already?
Oh, absolutely. And it shows you what he was doing, we're trying to do today. And it was, he went up against great odds. Even many people in his party were afraid to go and sign the 13th Amendment.
And that's why we're urging President Obama to take a look at this Capital Homestead Act, Dr. Kurland. We visit the Federal Reserve. We've been visiting the Federal Reserve for the last several years in hopes of getting others to take a look at what we're suggesting. But the Capital Homestead Act and giving people access to property and land and ownership.
And this is a good thing is that you can do it without taking away from those who own. First of all, because they can't take it with them anyhow.
That's
so
right.
When they die, you can always have the laws, the inheritance laws changed so that they spread it out and there'll be no tax.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
but so that we're looking at the tax system and federal spending and so on and the deficits. There will be no deficits under the Capital Homestead Act.
You're telling our audience that we have the ability in our Capital Homestead Act to balance this budget,
automatically.
Okay.
You know, I can go into the details, but anybody listening in, all they have to do is go to capitalhomestead.org or the website of cesj.org, and they can just look at what capital homesteading, the details of it, but it changes the tax system radically, simply, and it would balance the budget. President Obama needs it.
Absolutely.
But as far as I can see, he's never studied it. He's never looked it carefully. But if the people in Hartford and the people and the leaders in Hartford start examining this and go to the people and have the people start writing in to the White House and say, pass the Capital Homestead Act, free all people, empower all citizens through ownership, stop letting ownership be monopolized by a few. The only way you deal with monopoly is spread it out. You don't let power get concentrated, because when you concentrate power, because we're imperfect human beings, all of us. If
That's
you
right.
concentrate power, it will lead to corruption. So what's the answer? It isn't you eliminate power. You can't do that.
Absolutely. I think, more and more I'm hearing conversations around the poor and the marginalized in this country. I think that, it's not a poor versus rich scenario, but poverty certainly seems to be, it needs to be a part of the conversation, because when people are afraid, when they are dependent upon welfare, when they're depending upon the wages of others and the credit system that we have in place, Dr. Kurland, they seem to act according to the dictates of those who are in control of their finances.
Right,
and so
right.
And so what we're talking about is somehow creating a just system that frankly allows us to have the freedoms that we I think are inherently endowed with or given to us by our Creator.
Yeah, and you see, a lot of people think, well, you can always turn to charity. Well, charity is fine. The spirit of charity is a positive thing. It's the spirit of justice. It's the soul of justice. But charity should never be a substitute for justice.
Amen.
Justice
Amen.
must be developed, must be structured so that everyone can be empowered. Everyone can be charitable, not just the few.
Without question. I think that, we have to do all we can to get this just third way out and into the general public. My commitment to this movement and to this cause. I tell you, nothing that I can think of at this particular point in time seems to be as viable, seems to be as much a solution as the just third way. I think we've all got to be empowered. This show that we call The Challenge is dedicated to grassroots, but what we have in mind has just a basic and fundamental right is that every person, Dr. Kurland, wants to be heard. And every person should be heard and should be given the right and should have dignity and should have whatever it takes for them to reach their full potential.
And I think that's self-respect also. Russell, there's another point that we should make. Because a lot of people, because they've been hearing all kinds of garbage all their lives, they'll say, it's pie in the sky what you're talking about. It can't be done. But let me say this. We got laws through the Congress so that workers in the private sector, in private corporations, can become owners. There are now 11,000 companies because of what we did. What my mentor, and I was fortunate to be with him, we got the laws changed called employee stock ownership plans so that workers in companies have become 100% owners without putting up a penny. And there are 11 million. But if you can do it for private sector workers, why can't you do it for teachers and firemen and policemen and the disabled and children? Every person, because they're human, should be able to share in the growth pie. The annual growth, and then any transfers that take place. In other words, we got to be practical. If you control money, you can control who's going to own, and the money system is only a tool, and it shouldn't be a tool only for the few. It can work. Capital credit is what you need. It's in other words, credit for not so much consumer credit, but for production. So you can produce the things through the ownership of capital and get the income. What is first of all, most people don't know what property is. They think it's the things that you own, the land or the machines or the energy side. No. Property is the rights that you have, the powers that you have with respect to controlling the machine and the rights to the fruits of the machine. And all you have to do is think of what slavery is. Slavery is when those powers and rights and powers and right to the fruits belong not to the person, because the person doesn't own his own body, somebody else owns his body. You see, that's what slavery is. We're supposed to have ended that, but we have another form of slavery.
Without question. It is so necessary, Dr. Kurland, I think, for those who are looking for answers, who are looking for solutions to these problems, to pay particular attention to what we're saying. The website is cesj.org, cesj.org, and you could also look it up under the Capital Homestead Act.org. And you can take a look, and please, we urge those who who take the time to listen and view our program, to take the time to look and examine our message. It is by far a solution that should be examined by everyone in this country. We are not. It's not partisan. It's not Democrat. It's not Republican. This particular idea it should be vetted down in either side of the aisle. And frankly, I think to some extent it has. We think that this opportunity is frankly an idea whose time has come. And I can't say enough about the work that they're doing at the Center for Economic and Social Justice, and how honored and how proud I am to be a part of this movement. Dr. Kurland, we're coming up on the end of the show, but I want to give this time to you to share what you will, about where we're at. I know we have a rally coming up in April. We're planning a rally for April in front of the Federal Reserve.
April 26th, we will be delivering again what we call the Manifesto of Monetary Justice, Declaration of Monetary Justice. And it's you can get it from our website. But what's needed is a new march on Washington, a march on the White House, a march on the Federal Reserve. We go to the Federal Reserve because it's the temple of money for the world. And
that's right.
We change that from what they're doing now to what they should be doing. We don't want the government to own the money machine. We want the people to own the Federal Reserve, not the bankers, all the people in each of the 12 regions of the Federal Reserve. So it's time for Americans to wake up right at the grassroots. Let the grassroots get alive, get vibrant, organize, come in and tell the leaders what you want. Don't wait and listen to the garbage that's being handed by many of the people who are today in politics. They're not solving the problem.
I call this the next leg of the civil rights movement.
You're absolutely right.
I believe with all my heart, Dr. Kurland, that where the civil rights movement left off at with one person and one vote, we should have, and we are being handed the baton. And the baton says that we must have economic power to go along with our power to vote. Because unfortunately, in large numbers, our votes are being controlled by our pocketbooks. And we need to not let that be the case. We need to have a system that allows us to vote based upon what we believe and know is just and fair. And not just for one and not just for some, but for everyone.
Right. And another thing, Russell, is that I think we have to educate the teachers.
Yes.
And the unions to move from being labor unions to go out and become ownership unions, to organize all the people for ownership and capital homesteading.
Well, Dr. Kurland, that may be the point that we have to end at today, but that certainly is not the point that we will end this discussion. As long as we have an opportunity to be a voice for the movement called the Just Third Way, we intend to do so. And so we want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Dr. Kurland, for taking the time this morning. My very best to you and to your family. Enjoy your breakfast, and we'll talk to you very soon. Be blessed.